Rahul from Raymond James, you're up first. Your line is now open.
Thanks, Megan. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Terrific. Jason, Mark, thanks so much for taking the questions. And, congrats on taking a bit of a reset quarter here. So I guess maybe by being first, maybe I'll ask the big global question, right? So Jason, you started by talking about how you guys have been doing this a long time. And I think most folks on this call are believers in biomanufacturing, synthetic biology. So my question is, given the attrition that we've seen, given the thinning in revenue, thinning in projects, what are the threads out there that you're pulling on that make you believe that you're not too early? How is Ginkgo at the right time? And then maybe a more granular question will be then, as you evolve your business model, assuming you are at the right time,
Yeah.
how's Ginkgo not going to be categorized as effectively as a big CDMO? And that's it for me.
Yep. Okay. So great. Let me speak to that. Yeah. So the first point you made around biomanufacturing, I share your concerns on this. I think what we've seen, if you look at Ginkgo when we took the company public, majority of our customer base was in the industrial biotechnology sector. And I think people often treat that as like a synonym to synthetic biology. It's actually not, right? The way to think about synthetic biology is it's a tools infrastructure, right? It's people that are working on new ways to make the process of designing and engineering cells, faster and easier. It happened to be that a lot of the demand for that was in industrial biotech because of the complexity of the genetic engineering there. So that was sort of why there was a common equivalency. Industrial biotech has been hit very, very hard with higher interest rates. I think that's just the reality. The venture capital ecosystem completely dried up for those companies. Many of those companies have gone out of business. I love this space, and it's been tough. And so I think one of the things that the last few years have shown is, even in the face of that, which we weren't expecting when we took the company public, we were able to show that, hey, we're a tools platform, and actually we're adding all these new programs in biopharma, which was a space that we were lightly in when we took the company public. And so I think that does speak to the flexibility of Ginkgo as a platform. We're not really hooked exclusively on biomanufacturing or industrial biotechnology. In fact, the story of the last 2.5 years has been a pretty impressive, in my opinion, shift of our customer base from industrial biotech startup companies that were growing on a lot of venture capital to increasingly large biopharma, bioag companies that have, big existing research budgets, right? And so I will, that'd be my point on biomanufacturing. I think it's tough. I think we need some breakthroughs in that area. I think some of the consumer biotech stuff that's happening is pretty interesting. There's 6 new GMO house plants on the market somehow, right? And so I think that kind of stuff is exciting. But I think that sector has been hit really hard. You asked about whether we thought of when we focus on the pharma space as a large CDMO. I don't think that's the end of the world, right? So here's the basic problem with the CROs today. They don't really improve as they scale, right? If you look at a WuXi, look at Charles River, right? You're essentially outsourcing, doing that same thing. You're choosing to outsource data generation to an external lab, but they're just going to do exactly what your lab was going to do. They're going to hire a bunch of scientists, put them at lab benches, and do that work by hand. So the fundamental philosophy of how they do the work is exactly the same as how you do it in-house. So you're really just choosing there to hand off some of the things that you don't want to do. That's different than the distinction with Ginkgo as a quote CRO. People are coming to us because they want a large data asset. Okay, they either want it with automation or they want it with pooled. They can't get that from the traditional CROs. Okay, and they can't get it in-house. So the real question is, do they want it, right? If they start to want it, the advantage of my approach is I have scale economics. I get cheaper on the infrastructure as I do more work, right? And so that's where we'll be different. But in my view, if you compare the way lab work gets done, the overwhelming majority of research spending is going to kits and equipment and real estate and labs and all this. It's such a giant pile of expense. And the CROs have tapped almost none of that. And that's because they have not offered really a compelling differentiation from what the customer can do themselves. And I'm hopeful if we can make this flexible and scalable, which is the big unlock, then you eat up more and more and more of that by hand research budget. You really do. So I don't have a problem being thought of that way at all, as long as you think of me as one that could ultimately take, half of the research budget someday if we were right about this this philosophy for doing the lab work.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much, and good luck with the big shift.
Thanks, Rahul.